nobody takes our industry seriously. There's no soul to the place. The intent is there, but I think the system is fundamentally broken.
Really what I did there to grow that business to 3,000 in about 18 months was flatline. So flatline was a class designed to try and kill you. Now, I feel like I'm playing to win and not playing not to lose. Yeah, marketing attracts and brand keeps it. We need to be disruptive, but not offensive. Because if you then have great brand and marketing, the product will just fail quicker. You know, it's very, very Marmite. You know, it's very, very niche.
Yeah.
Okay, it gives you the confidence you're on the right track, right? And actually then you had a very profitable business, which is a side business for them, really.
Thanks for doing this, Mark.
You're welcome. Good to be here.
Really appreciate it.
No problems at all.
Mark, most people think gyms are all about the right equipment, marketing, getting the right trainers in, and infrastructure. You've led one of the most, I would say, maverick brands called Gymbox at a point of time. And now you are with a legacy brand, Fitness First. I would say there are two ends of the spectrum, right?
Yeah.
One extremely, at least it's viewed like that. One extremely conservative and one really in your face. Now, looking at your experience, if somebody who's running a gym or, running a fitness business was to learn from this, the end-to-end spectrum, what do you think has happened in the industry that people have failed in running fitness businesses? I see a lot of new independents start and close down. A lot of personal trainers moving from doing personal training to opening independent gyms and failing because they try to emulate something which they don't actually believe in. So if I am a trainer from somebody who's been a business leader, what would you say I should do? And what's the process of going about setting up a gym?
Yeah, good question. So I think the first thing for me would be stand for something. So stand for something and go all in on it. Because Gymbox was a disruptor and it was built to be a disruptor from day one. So the concept actually came from Crunch Fitness. So Crunch Fitness in the States back in the day was very, very in your face, very, very different. And actually Richard, who was the founder of Gymbox, was a member at Crunch in the States when he worked in advertising. So he saw a niche in the UK that was untapped. And that was all gyms were the same. Wooden floors, white walls, name badges, very boring experiences. So his view was actually there's a real niche here of being a disruptor, but everything you do when you're a disruptor has to be disruptive. So you create a brand tone, you create a brand product tone, you cut a company tone for a brand onion, and that's where it all starts from initially. Okay. Then you look at the product and go, okay, your business can't be all gimmick, it can't be all brand or marketing, PR. It has to have a credible product. So what Gymbox did really well back in the day was they had this disruptor tone and a brand onion. At the core of the onion, the key word for the business was challenger. So everything that was done back then was from a challenger mindset. Okay. But your product had to be credible. Okay. Even more so nowadays because people are way more educated now than they were 20 years ago when Gymbox was formed. So the first thing I'd say is, stand for something and double down and go all in on that. When you're looking at Fitness First, as you mentioned now, you're right. I mean, one of the key things that attracted me to Fitness First was that I think it's the most famous brand in the UK. It's the most famous fitness brand in the UK. And, having the opportunity to go into that brand and put, say, my mark on it, okay? And it's not going to be a Gymbox. It should never be a Gymbox, okay? It's not that. But what can the evolution of Fitness First be? So we've gone into the business now. We've re-looked at the brand onion. We've got a new tone. We've got a new approach to marketing and to PR. Our clubs are looking different. The refurbs are completely different because we're going all in on what we think the future of fitness is for Fitness First now. So stand for something would be my key bit of advice on that.
Mark, do you think, a lot of people would want to ask you this. Do you think this is going from a Gymbox to a Fitness First? Is it a step backward, step forward? And why do you think it is?
It's a difficult one, that, right?
Yeah.
They're very, very different businesses. Okay, in terms of I think it's a step forward for Fitness First because it's the most famous brand in the UK.
Correct.
Right. So I look at that and go, I think Fitness First gets dealt a bad hand from a perspective of the industry, because now I'm in the business, been in the business for 9 months. We've got unbelievable staff. Okay, we've got staff members that have been there for 20 odd years. We've got a really, really loyal community. Okay, so in terms of performance of business over 1993, business was founded. It's a long, long time. It's been through a lot across that period of time, which is probably given it a bit of a bad reputation across time. But the family that own this business now have moved this business forward across the last several years. So I wouldn't say necessarily a step back or step forward. It's different, right? It's different. At the core of Gymbox, it was disruptive. So everything I did could be disruptive. My thinking with the marketing team, my thinking with the sales team, the team in general, how we did things different, it was disruptive. Fitness First can be disruptive, but in a completely different way, and it's nice now that we're getting people saying, oh, wow, I've seen your refit in that club and it's completely different. We've got people going in now from old Fitness First members coming back in and going, this is completely different. Wow. So I think it's disrupting Fitness First and Fitness First kind of own way, but not trying to be anything else other than what we think is the future of Fitness First.
And do you think would you try to redefine the brand? So one of the things you mentioned, and I completely agree with you, we are about 5 people in this room at the moment. I can bet that all of us have had either a membership at Fitness First. In fact, Jake, I think, started his career there, or went into work there. So Fitness First has been a legacy brand, and it's a global brand. I mean, I know Fitness First at one point of time was private equity owned, then it went into different hands, and now they own separately. It's no longer a single entity.
Yeah.
If you could elaborate firstly on what's the structure of Fitness First? What's happened to Fitness First in the last 10, 15 years? I remember Fitness First coming to India, then Oak Tree investing in them, then disinvesting and then moving out. And then the company broke up into different entities and every master became actually their own owner of it. And there's no universal brand. So there's a lot of confusion around it. Yeah. If you could clarify that.
Yeah, so Fitness First, probably the best place to start would be, it was private equity backed and now it's family owned. Yeah. So since 2016.
Yeah.
So 2016, it's been originally obviously Dave Whelan, who was the founder of JJB Sports, then had DW bought Fitness First, and then they rebranded the sites as Fitness First. Yeah. Obviously the pandemic came in 2020, and that had a huge impact on every single fitness business in the UK, right? So, since then it's been a case of, rebuilding the business for sure, from that perspective. But as you say, you're right. Each individual country now has its own separate entity. Yeah. And, we've got 26 sites in the UK at the moment, 18 in London. And then we've got North Wales, we've got sort of Bedford, Milton Keynes, St Albans, Bath. So dotted around the country as well.
Amazing. And from the way Fitness First is going to grow, it's going to change a few things. The way it existed in the past is not the way it will exist in the future, obviously, because every brand has to adapt to changing trends. What are those 2-3 changes that you think are, when you walked into the system, you thought low-hanging fruits, let's sort this out and let's get it to the next level immediately? What were those?
Yeah, I mean, look, my view on brand in general is you always have to evolve. Okay? You can never stand still. And, through the back of the pandemic and through some, more challenging times, not just at Fitness First, by the way, but in general, in fitness businesses post-pandemic, everyone had to look at, the cash flow, investment, how quickly certain areas would bounce back. So, from that perspective, I think, I've certainly looked at, where I think fitness is going. So I came into this business with a plan already. Okay, I presented to Scott, who's the chair of the business, and said, look, I've got 9 big moves of where I think this business needs to go across the next 12 to 18 months. Okay. I won't give too many of them away, but, a few of them will be starting with culture. Okay. Because, for me, I want to build high performing teams. So I've sat down with the HR and the leadership team from that perspective and gone, okay, well, what is high performing? How do we set standards in a business where high performance is the norm? Okay, so we're doing a big project on that as, one key big move, because I think, you can't do anything without the people, right? So culture is big for me. The second one was brand and marketing. Now, I would say probably pre coming in, and this is not a knock on Fitness First of the past, I've got to be honest, it's a knock on fitness in general, is I could give you 10 images, okay, and I could put this different logo on every image, and you wouldn't know any different. I could give you a logo on a third space image of Fitness First, a Pure Gym, you wouldn't know the difference.
I couldn't agree more with you. I couldn't agree more with you.
So the low hanging fruit for me would have been, okay, brand. Okay, what do we want our brand to be? So we got the marketing team involved in a conversation around the brand and where it's at. We got our agency involved in the brand and where it's at. I have some quite strong views on that, which ruffled a few feathers, of course.
Yeah.
To start with, at least.
Standard.
Yeah, absolutely. And then we got the team involved. Yeah. So our brand onion we've created now wasn't created by me or our marketing agency. It was created by our teams. So in a room, we had a central team. We had our Region 1, Region 2, Region 3. They all went away, gave them a brief, came out with a brand onion, which gave you, as I say, your company values, gave you your tonal values, your product values, and then the core word that describes Fitness First. And interestingly, they all came out with very similar things. Okay. So, we want to be a bit more fun as a brand. Yeah. Okay. Do we want to be Disney? No. Do we want to be BBC? No. But we'll probably be more towards the right side of that central. So that was just one thing we looked at. The key word that came out that everyone agreed was we're the most iconic brand in the UK. Right. 100%. So iconic came in there as a key word. Well, how do you be iconic? You are iconic, right? Yeah. So then we looked at, okay, well, let's look at our brand, let's look at our marketing, let's look at our tone of voice. So that was low hanging fruit for me because I've done it with Gymbox and going into Fitness First now, when you see our marketing now and the campaigns we've done. So the first campaign we did, which was very, very early days, was progress over perfection. It called out all the bullshit around perfection in the industry. And it was again like, choose progress again and again was the campaign. We told stories of, inspirational stories of members and personal trainers about choosing progress. It's a very, very different tone of voice to Fitness First as used before. And the one we've just done now was about BioAge. So we've gone all in on BioAge. So the lines are things like, you're only as old as the BioAge you feel. Okay. You versus youth, So we're leaning into a different tone of voice now, so that actually you probably wouldn't put anyone's logo on that work now because it wouldn't work with everyone. And that's another part of the low-hanging fruit from that perspective. So I think brand for sure was key. Culture was 2. And then the third one was product. Okay, so the third piece was, if you look at the clubs we've refurbed, very different look, very different feel. In some cases, we're adding 40-50% to the yield. We're premiumization of the whole product. And that's where we're going as well. So they're probably the 3 key bits of low-hanging fruit we had to start with.
So let's look at Fitness First. You're right. I mean, Fitness First punches above its weight. Like, I would have thought there are probably 100 sites of Fitness First because the brand's so strong that if you ask me today, in the top of my mind, if you were to ask me top 3 brands in the UK, Fitness First would always be there because of just by virtue of being there in the market for so long. But that's a good and a bad both, because you already have an image of Fitness First and it's going to be very difficult to change that. Yeah. So, like example, if I were to ask you, tell me one thing that works at Gymbox that will never work on Fitness First.
Yeah, I mean, the obvious one for Gymbox would be the PR stunts. The stuff that Gymbox did back in the day, you'd be cancelled for nowadays. Okay. And it would never have worked at Fitness First.
Can I have one of those examples, please?
Yeah, I mean, we did one called Yummy Bummy. And it was basically about toning your butt to the celebrity of your choice. So we had Kylie Minogue in the window, we had J-Lo and a couple of others in hot pants, in Bank in the City. You can go on Google it, you'll see it, and you had them high up in the window with their butts facing out, and you had all the City bankers walking past looking in the window, and you had the name written on the pants. Now, I look back and think we're proud of the PR agency creating that one for us? I'm not so sure. At the time it was relevant. And
back in the day it was right.
And it worked at the time. So that was one of them we'd say, we just couldn't do that. So the PR stunts we did, it wouldn't fit with Fitness First. But now we've reviewed the Fitness First brand, some of them would. We did a PR stunt more recently around BioAge. We were like, okay, how do we get across the BioAge concept to the consumer? Yeah. Okay. So we took this young lad, Demi, who's a calisthenics athlete. He's actually one of our sort of influencers and did a Choose Progress campaign because he used to be, a skinny lad back in the day when he was growing up, and now he's a calisthenic, influencer, and he's incredible. He's an athlete. So we were like, actually, do you know what we'll do? We now partner with Gymshark. We do a Gymshark conditioning club every Wednesday in our London Bridge Club. We're going to get Demi to come in, and we're going to dress him as an old man. Okay, so we did it properly. We brought the we did prosthetics, we did everything, did the whole lot. Okay, we did a whole makeover. So we brought Demi into the club, and he'd go into the middle of the Gymshark conditioning club, and then he'd start walking like an old man, and then he'd move into doing sort of handstand walks, and and it just created a buzz, and it was different. And Fitness First haven't done this sort of stuff before, so it seems very simple. And it cost us a bit of money to launch that through an agency, and we got really good reach. But again, everything you do like that means that people start talking differently about the brand.
Yeah, and that's not Fitness First. That's not how I view it. So
yeah, absolutely.
But it still works for Fitness First because I hear you now what you're saying. Yeah, makes sense.
It does. And we bought the kind of prosthetic person from Wicked, the musical in, right? And they came and did a proper job on it. So you can't do these things by half. You go all in on it. And the reach was huge. But everything you do like that, for me, it's about talkability. Okay, now you've got your core business, and fitness is pretty simple, right? And I tell this to all the staff when I started in this business. Okay, get the location right in the first place, and get the property deal right in the first place. Okay, that's on me. Yeah. Okay, but if you get your location right, okay, you could probably open a gym that isn't that good, and you'll still do all right. Yeah. Okay, because the location's key. The property deal is key. Okay. Then you look at the product. Okay, what is the product? What is the offering? What is Fitness First now versus what it was 5, 10, 15, 20 years ago? And you always have to be evolving from that perspective. Okay, get your operations right, get your service levels right. Get your team right, recruit the right teams, and then the commercials will be delivered. So we actually don't run difficult businesses, really. Okay, but getting the product right is super important. And so back to your other question, do we want to be a gym box? Absolutely not. Can we be more disruptive in our thinking? Yes, but in a way that it's authentic with what our new sort of DNA is.
And what do you think gym box could learn from Fitness First? Because there's something that for the time duration that Fitness First as a brand has been top of mind in the UK, I'm sure it's done something really well. What do you think somebody like a gym box could pick up from them? Because a lot of people also say brands like gym box, and no disrespect to them, are like a fad. They would come in, they would trend, and they would, if they don't reinvent themselves, the reason they came into the industry was because they were a fad and they were different, and then they are no longer different, and then they're no longer relevant.
Yeah, I don't think probably fad's quite the right word. I think we were always obsessed with evolving the brand and the product. Okay, so when it comes to gym box, what I can learn from Fitness First, not so there's any probably necessary learnings there, but what I would say is, you had Richard in the business who was founder. You had David who was co-founder. You had myself in the business for 15 years. You had Rory, Brandon Martin, director of business for nearly 7 years. Had a lot of people in that business for a long time who were always evolving. We were always thinking about what's next. Be that a PR campaign, be that a new marketing campaign, be that a new product. David was fantastic at product. We really trusted David to go out. We brought CrossFit into gym box 5 years before anyone else brought CrossFit into clubs. Okay, he was excellent at that. So we were always obsessed about being caught up. We were always obsessed about when your boutiques launched. The boutiques launched, and we were like, we need to up our game. Our studio products were very creative in our classes. So we had, all our classes created by us, for us, all very PRable, very, very different. Talkability was there. But our physical studio spaces weren't good enough at that stage. So when One Rebel opened, Barry's opened, we were like, right, we need to get on this. And what we were very good at was recognizing what was coming and then making changes. So I say, I'm also sure it's learn. Obviously things at Gymbox are very different now. It's not the brand it was 18 months ago, and understandably it's not run by the same people, and you haven't got the founder and the co-founder and the CEO there has been there for a long time, so it's very different now. And the evolution of Gymbox, we were going to take it, was very, very different to the Gymbox now.
Yeah, it's a different path now they've taken.
It is, absolutely.
Yeah,
And actually, the path that Gymbox was going to take under my leadership, we'll be rolling out under Fitness First. So the strategy that I had for Gymbox will now be rolling out under Fitness First, just not in quite as a disruptive tone of voice.
Got it. But so do you want to go back to Gymbox? Like the reason I'm asking this question is because Gymbox was, when they came in the market, they just invented a place for themselves. That thing was not existing. So sometimes when disruptors come in, they would create a positioning for themselves which has never been thought of. Yeah. So I remember the first time I went to Gymbox, I think it was almost 10 years back, 9 or 10 years back. And I was setting up my first gym in the UK. And I still remember going down, it was in a basement, went in and people were talking a different language. People are talking about, oh, we've got these performers who come into this. The fuck is performers? I mean, what are performers doing in the gym? It says, no, we've got these dance experts in this. I'm just like, fuck it, totally confused and blown away. I said, how am I going to compete in this market? And I didn't realize at that point of time that Gymbox was different even in the UK. And I thought we're fucked because this is going to be very difficult. This market is very different and we've not done this before. So what was it that Gymbox was doing differently that nobody was doing at that point of time when you initially started?
Yeah, I mean, the good news is Gymbox isn't for everyone, right? Which means, it's very, very Marmite. It's very, very niche. Yeah. Okay. So, I was in our club in Bank many, many years ago. And, I used to sit in the reception area. I listened to what's going on with the tours because I used to do sales training, obviously, back in the day. And we had somebody walk out, this is probably 10 years ago now, who said, I'm not going to join now. I'm going to go and join Fitness First. I'm going to get in better shape. Then I'm going to come back and join you. Right. And I was sat there in shock. I wasn't sure if that was a good or bad thing, because we weren't trying to create that. As a business, we weren't trying to create that environment. But naturally, when you do really disruptive PR, really disruptive marketing, you attract a certain crowd. Now, look, don't get me wrong. 70% of the people there could have been there on location alone. If we're in Bank or on Lombard Street and we're nearest to you from your office, you may join us anyway. Yeah. Okay. But for the other 30% who have a choice, they could go to Fitness First, they could go to VA, they could come to us. Maybe they're choosing us because of brand. And so that's why we were so obsessed about always evolving the product, always evolving the brand, always evolving the tone of voice, the PR, the marketing. We spent a lot of money kind of sort of driving that. So, as I said at the start, the good news is that isn't for everyone. So, it did well because of the creative classes. Okay. Even though only 40% of the members did classes.
So what were those creative classes? I can't quite recollect. I remember they said some performers come in and do whatever they do. So what was different?
Yeah. So I mean, going back some time now, but so Yummy Bumming would be one of them we did. Yeah. We did one called Aerobics, which is we basically did a class where we guaranteed at the end of the class you would grow taller. Okay. We had people from all over the world coming in, and we actually built a stretch machine in the end. Now, the ironic thing is with stretch machines, they only stretch your arms and your legs. But effectively, the core message behind it was, with exercise, with the right posture, right stretching, you did grow taller, right? Because your posture was better, and so therefore you were taller. So again, it was we did one around sort of the world ending. We did one around flatline. So flatline was a class designed to try and kill you. Now, flatline was, we had medics on site. We had sick buckets. We tried to push a human to the absolute limits. Yeah. And once your heart rate reached a certain level, the medics pulled you out. Yeah. But again, this was the, as we matured as a business, myself, David, Richard and Rory would sit and go, are we going too far with this now? Yeah. Is the consumer more educated, and do they even want to see this shit anymore? Do they really want to see things like Aerobics? We came to a view of, actually, we needed to be disruptive, but not offensive. So we dropped the offensive part. So the PR stunts we started to do were a lot more disruptive, non-offensive, but they were still very, very quirky in its sort of a tone. The other thing with it is we were really surprised that over a period of, Gymbox was founded in 2003, sold a business in 2024. No one had copied it.
Correct.
Right. No one had copied it. Yeah. Because it's really hard to copy a brand or copy a culture, and it's very, very difficult to do that. Yeah. Now, there's some sort of lookalikes, But unless you're all in, unless you really understand the DNA of that and how it works, it's so difficult to copy.
Yeah, it's almost impossible to copy it because you're right. If you don't believe in it, and you need to get everybody to believe in the vision, and you have to live every day that same vision.
Yeah.
So you can't just act. It's like, you can't put up a mask forever. At some point of time, you'll have to reveal who you are truly as a brand, and I think that's where people lose out. So, Mark, when you walked into Fitness First, what was that thing that you have to be brutally honest about and say, guys, this is going to change, otherwise we can't move forward? And was it a difficult conversation because you now moved to it's a family run business?
Yeah.
So obviously, it's a different power structure, I would say. And I personally worked in places, where it's you work with a family office, you work with families, you work with professional environments, you work with private equities. They're all very different kind of people to deal with.
Yeah.
So how did you manage? And you did mention that you ruffled a few feathers when you walked in. So
yeah, I think first and foremost, I met Scott, who's the chair, for a few beers. I was doing consultancy work at the time. For a brand called Until, who who are a fantastic brand, and will grow across the UK and the States, which is exciting for them. But I met Scott for a few beers, and it was very, very evident during those few beers that they were open to change. Okay, they were open to change. They were in a good position financially. Okay, they'd been for a restructuring in 2023. They were in a good place, but now they're looking to do something different. So I was pushing for an open door from that perspective on change.
got it.
When I did come on board though, and I sat with the individual teams, I met the whole HQ team and teams in clubs, it was very, very evident they were excited about the brand and the marketing and the tone and where we wanted to go with this. So when I say ruffle a few feathers, probably, the agency we used at the time, and we still do for elements as well, certainly ruffled their feathers because I was questioning why is that our campaign? Why are we doing that? That could be anyone's logo on there. It doesn't work for me. So we changed that relatively quickly. Leah, brand and communications director, is ex-Matalan, ex-Iceland, a great guy, knowledgeable, loads of experience. And again with Lee, it's a conversation like this. I sit with Lee and go, okay, well, what do we want to be? Let's pull it apart. Is this right for us? Is this right for us? And we spent a lot of time shaping the brand and the marketing strategy moving forward. So I think that's probably the one area where I could sit and go, right, there's some expertise we could sprinkle on this from a disruptive perspective. And I suppose the other area would be culture, because I have a very strong view on culture, and I have a very strong view on lip service. So I think for me, it was a case of going, look, okay, have you got a good culture? Okay, well, culture is every single interaction, every single day you have. It's not your brand values on a wall. It's so I spent a lot of time walking the clubs in that first month or so, understanding what our culture was and if we needed to change. Now, the good news was with unbelievable teams, I've brought a few people in that I used at Gymbox, especially in the creative side of things, because they get it, and I've worked with them for a long time. But we have fantastic teams at Fitness First who have, again, it's been a really open door in terms of my vision of what culture is and how we need to drive it, and how we treat people and how we talk to people. And that wasn't too difficult to push through the open door.
Yeah, I've been to a couple of Fitness First in the UK, and we met teams that I don't remember for what. We had some work and had to meet a team, and so we met the manager. He was there for about, I think, 10 years. So that's a long time. He says, they've been people here for 20 years.
Absolutely.
So he says, we just love the culture. We love the company. It's more like you could see the kind of ownership they had. And they were also very honest in saying what's not right, what needs to be done. I think that was something that I was pleasantly surprised with. A lot of times people get defensive and say that, we're all good. I think they were very open to say that, I think we need to change 2 or 3 things. And I think that's going to impact the business. So when you sat down with your team there and you looked at the leadership team, because our business is such that every general manager technically needs to think like a CEO. I don't know the structure of Fitness First, but I would assume, and this is how I'd run my business, that every club manager or club general manager is as good as the CEO of that club, and every club has a different challenge. So when you get them on the table, a lot of times they're talking a different language. How did you ensure that these guys are on the same page when it comes to the brand, especially considering their different challenges?
Yeah, so obviously, there's a vision, there's a mission, there's values in the business. Okay, so again, the first thing was, look, we've got these. Do we live and breathe them? Do we talk about them enough? Do we reward them? Do we incentivize them? Do we recognize people when they are living and breathing these? For sure. The other thing to think about from a business perspective is, I always say trust the experts. Okay, so when I looked at my senior team, I got marketing, operations, digital. As a club manager, you need to trust the experts, right? Because we've all been there. I've been a GM in the past, right? And you can look at a marketing campaign, and everyone has an opinion on a marketing campaign, right? How many gyms you've been to in the past where you've seen a referral offer printed out on A4, stuck to a wall because the club thought that was the right thing to do. This happened many times over the years in other brands I'd worked at. So my view to start with was, look, trust the experts in this business. Okay, we're going to build a culture, high performing culture, where delivering is the expectation and delivering is normal. Okay, we're going to drive a culture, where we win together, we take accountability and all the other values we've got in there, and reinforcing that. Okay, in there. Then when you start to turn the needle on things like brand and marketing, and you do a few PR stunts, and then your new marketing campaign is fresher and newer, it's really easy to get buy-in. It's really easy to get buy-in, because one of the GMs said to me recently after a GM meeting, it's quite powerful. He said, I feel like I'm playing to win and not playing not to lose, which I think was so powerful. And, and he wouldn't know that would stick with me. But as a leader and as a leadership team in our business, it gives you the confidence you're on the right track, right?
Yeah.
So, that's probably what I'd say from that perspective.
And Marc, fitness first. Are you going to go explode in terms of growth? You're going to consolidate? What's the strategy?
We're looking at refurb programs. We did 4 in the last 6 months. We'll do another 4 or so this year. That will mean about 20 of the 26 sites would have had some sort of refurbishment. We're seeing really good growth. The clubs that we do refurbishments in, the growth is phenomenal. One of the clubs we did last September, it's doubled EBITDA overnight.
Wow.
Okay, our yield went from £55 to £90. Say the EBITDA on volume since then has doubled overnight. So we're seeing the wins on the refurbishments, and going from the old Fitness First to the new Fitness First with cold water immersion, spa areas, recovery areas. We're doing things differently from that perspective now. And then obviously new sites. So look, this isn't going to be a roll out 15, 20 sites a year. That's not the plan. The plan is to refurb the current estate, pick and choose the right new sites when they pop up. We've got heads of terms agreed on a site in the city at the moment.
Nice.
We're negotiating a couple more. So, we'll get some movement from that perspective. But there's still a lot of growth from the current core estate to work through to grow the EBITDA of the business.
Marc, over coffee, we were discussing about you're taking a gym from, I remember this conversation where you went to this hotel and the guy said we have 1,000 members, and it was actually 600 when you looked at the numbers, and then you grew that business considerably over a period of time. I would, as we were having that conversation over coffee, I thought I wish we had the mics here, because this is exactly what happens. Sometimes when you have these conversations, you learn so much. People lose focus of what the reality is, and people like to listen to the good news, the good numbers, the top line, and a lot of times if you don't go under the hood, you don't see the reality. So just run me through that conversation where you spoke about you walked in and the entire context.
Yeah, I mean, it's actually my first role post LA Fitness. So I left LA Fitness in 2009 as a regional for them, and I went into consultancy world. And it just so happened, I mean, it's funny how these things go in life, but it just so happened that my son went to school with a guy who was a CEO of Dolphin Square. And Dolphin Square, for those who don't know it, in Pimlico in London, about 1,000 apartments, about 120 hotel rooms, and they had this gym, and just spent £1 million refurbing this gym. Wow. And he said to me, look, can you come and take a look? So I went and take a look. And it was done really well. I mean, it was done, it's refitted very well at the time for, I think £80 a month around that price point we were at.
And which year was this, is it?
It's 2010.
Wow.
Yeah, 2010. Now it had, a big swimming pool. It had a tennis court on the Thames. It was a higher end club. But I started on my first day. I said, look, I can help you out. I agreed to do, I think, 2 or 3 days a week for a period of time. And my remit was, right, this club's had a £1 million refit 6 months ago. It's not moving in terms of membership. It needs to do better. But actually, it's a bit of a distraction for us because it's not our core business. So my first day I went in and I got under the hood, as you say, and they said it had 1,000 members. And I said to him, I've got some bad news at the end of the day. Membership base is not 1,000. He said, well, what is it? I said, 600. You've got 400 members in debt. And so straight away, from the first minute, we're on the back foot, 400 members less than when I started. So, but again, to grow that, as much as the disruption and the creativity and the PR and the marketing is important, it really is. So are your systems and processes.
Yeah.
Okay. So really what I did there to grow that business to 3,000 in about 18 months was really looked at the staff, the culture, the systems, the processes, sales training, what marketing they did. We pulled the whole thing apart. And actually they had a fantastic product that no one knew about. That's the reality of it. Okay. They had people that would come in and the conversion on walk-ins might be 20% because they didn't have a team that were trained to do that in the right way. So again, low-hanging fruit you mentioned earlier, we just pulled apart all that low-hanging fruit. And actually then you had a very profitable business, which is a side business for them, really. A distraction as they called it, but it was a very profitable business thereafter.
And so you moved from, if I'm not wrong, from 600 to about 3,000 members. So Mark, let's look at this as a case study, right? There are lots of nuggets of knowledge I've taken from what you've said. So the product is important. I think a lot of times, and especially assume this is a trainer who's listening to this or somebody who's an independent gym wants to expand and they're facing exactly the challenge what you're talking about. I've always seen people look at our business as a marketing gimmicky space, like create campaigns, create this. Product can be fucking anything, it doesn't matter. Like you mentioned, look, and I always say this, if you don't have the logo in the picture, you can't say which gym it is. What's the fucking point of having it? Right? There's no soul to the place. There's no brand. You've not differentiated yourself well enough for you to call yourself a brand. You can put a logo there, but that's not a brand. A brand stands for something. So if I were to look at this as a case study of what you achieved there, it was a side business for somebody, and for a lot of trainers, they think, I will go on Instagram, I will create a brand, I will create some awesome campaigns, and I will run the business, but it's not sustainable because you don't have the product right. So a case study where somebody's struggling and they're not able to figure out what they're doing wrong. If you were to give them a list of audit points they need to do for themselves, or if they're starting, what are those things that they should look at before starting this? Or if they're in it and they're in this situation where you thought, where these guys were like 500 members and the gym has the potential of going 3,000-4,000. So people take a site assuming, this is a 3,000 member site and they're struggling with 500. They must be doing something wrong. Assuming that they are in the right location.
Really important.
Well, because you mentioned that.
It's so important.
And I think this is experience talking. Very few people understand that we are in the business of real estate first. You get that wrong, you can't fucking turn that around. You're fucked. So assuming the location is right, the demographics are right, people can pay for it, I still have a problem. What's that list that I need to go through?
So if your location's right, the first thing you need to look at is the product. Okay, because I was lucky here. They'd spent £1 million, and whilst they hadn't spent it as I'd spend it, they had a premium facility. They had a swimming pool, they had sauna, they had steam room, they had squash courts, they had a tennis court on the Thames. They had the gym was probably undersized. In today's world, the gym would definitely be undersized because now it's 6% strength, and performance based, and fitness racing, high rocks, whatever it might be. So, but going back 16 years. So the product is the first thing. So they had a product that I could market. Okay, that was very, very helpful. If you haven't got a product or you haven't got a USP, you need to find that. So that USP might be your classes, it might be your creative classes. Your USP might be the fact that you've got your premium, is it USP itself, right? It's, we're a premium facility. So if you haven't got that, get the product right. And the second thing to that would be, who knows you're there? My view is everybody within a certain radius of you needs to know you're there, and you need to tell them on a regular basis. Now, back in the day, one of the first things I did, I flooded Victoria, the area, with promotional stuff. Okay, so we branded the jackets, and we had new branded leaflets for a premium gym. You think, well, does that work? My view's always been, do what works for your business. Okay, now I actually went to watch a seminar with Jordan Balfour many years ago. Not a lot of it stuck because I talked a lot of shit, but but what did stick to me was, look, there's no right or wrong way to market your business. Okay, so if door to door works for you, okay, which is a really interesting conversation actually, because I'm finding now, by the way, that actually your inbox on email is like your letterbox of years ago, right? Years ago you'd have Domino's Pizza, you'd have your local gym, everything. You don't get any now.
No.
Okay, so is that a good way of then marketing? Because actually no one else is doing it, for example. Your Instagram, your TikTok, everything's filled with adverts now. So, is there a new way of doing it? But the point would be do what works for your business. And what worked for us back then was getting onto the streets, getting into Victoria, and people understanding who we were. Well, what's this Dolphin Square? What's Dolphin Fitness? What is it? So we did a bit of that back then. So product first and foremost, and then your brand and marketing. Okay. Now you have to get the product right though, because if you then have great brand and marketing, your product will just fail quicker, right? So you're going to flood loads of people in the front door, and they're not going to join. Okay, and you're burning the lead. So my view is get the product right, and then go and get your brand and marketing out. And obviously, back to brand and marketing, your marketing will attract people to your business. Your brand will keep them. Okay, and that's really, really important. That's every single touch point in your club, from the interaction, from the uniform, from the tone they're using, the interaction, meaningful interactions on the gym floor, from your cleanliness to your equipment. That's all your brand, right? So marketing attracts them, brand keeps them.
So, I've been thinking about it, and I just made a question. You made some, there's some insights which people don't have, and think you've touched upon them. So what actually drives revenue in a gym, and what people think matters on the floor, and what actually happens on the floor are different things. So how do you take this marketing, this product, back onto the floor that the staff understands? So what do you think is the process, and what's it that actually matters? Right? Branding and marketing matters for you to, so up to the point of me getting a lead onto the floor is the marketing. But what matters on the floor is equally important, if not more. So what do you think is that?
So you need to have, so your product isn't just your physical product, right? Your people are, as if, if not more important, right? Now, and again, it's a cliche, but they really are. So again, it's then making it very, very clear with your team what you expect from your team in clubs. Okay, if your product's good, fantastic. But do you know what? Meaningful interactions go a long way. Okay, and this is where the physical and digital world kind of combine, right? Because we know, the digital world can tell us a lot about our memberships, a membership base, but the physical world is so important. So, I've talked before in podcasts and things about service and world-class service, and I took a back step about 8 weeks ago with my team at Fitness First and said, this is all wrong. This is all wrong. We talk about world-class service. World-class service would be walking into a 5-star establishment. You get a meet and greet from good to meet you, sir. They take my bag for me. They take it to the locker. They give me a scented, heated towel. We don't offer that. Okay, but what we can offer is really meaningful interactions and team members that actually care. So one of our brand values is we care. And that would be someone comes in, you recognize them, you have a conversation with a meaningful interaction with them. Okay, that could be at the front desk. That could be in the shower area or the changing area when you're tidying the towels. It could be on the gym floor. So we're very, very focused on our meaningful interactions, because that helps create a culture in your club of community. Okay, so we do that. The other thing we're doing to naturally enhance this is niche communities. So running clubs, lifting clubs, conditioning clubs, that creates a whole stickiness, and that's member interaction, members socializing together, team members socializing with members, which is absolutely fine. Back in the day that would be frowned upon. That's we've fully embraced that now. So for us, it's about creating this really sticky community where people come in, they can be themselves, they can get their workout done, and they get meaningful interactions from for our teams on the gym floors.
So Mark, this is one part of having high performing teams, but beyond culture and energy, what differentiates a high performing team? Is there anything else that you think is required to have high performing teams, or is it only culture and the energy and the products?
There's so many things. There's reward, recognition, there's development, there's, we're now re-looking at development programs for our teams. We're looking at mentoring for our teams. There's a whole host of things that go into creating a high performing teams, which our team are currently working through at the moment. So I think, setting examples, really important. So myself, the whole leadership team, setting examples on what high performing is. I've always said, I'm pretty consistent in my approach. Like I don't get too excited. I don't celebrate too hard the wins. But, also when I then lose, losing for me hurts more than winning, right? Losing lasts for days, winning lasts for minutes, right? So I'm trying to create a culture where delivering is normal, okay? So, and that's not easy. That's not easy because, someone can deliver 100% of their member experience, or they can do 100% of their net member movement, and that's good, guys. Well done. We one of our brand values is aim higher. Okay, because the people that aim higher in your business will be the next leaders in your business. Okay, the people that deliver targets, it's fantastic. Okay, the people that aim higher and go above and beyond, they're the real high performers, and they're the people that you'll earmark for future development in the business.
Yeah, I think very important to groom leadership for the next level, and if they start, people need to fill in shoes. I used to always say that, and I come with an HR background, that when you're building your next level of leadership, they will never be prepared for the role completely. No. But if you've got big shoes to fill, if you're there 60-70%, you're there. But there's a jump between two levels. People don't understand, like the top level or one level are very difficult positions to be in, because your level of responsibility is never defined clearly. It's like a moving target.
Yeah.
And so when you say that, so you want to make performance as BAU, like business as usual.
Absolutely.
We're delivering what we're supposed to do, so it's not being rude, but just saying you're doing a job.
Yeah.
Right.
So I meet, so at Gymbox, I met every single new starter on their first day. Okay. Half an hour on a Wednesday, 10 to 10:30, and we're all in London, so it was easy. They'd come to our head office, and I'd do the first half an hour of their induction. It was a 3-day induction, okay, before they even touched the gym floor or the shop floor. And I covered mission, I covered vision, I covered your values, and where the business is going. Okay, so everyone from day one got an idea about, from me, where this business was going. I do the same now at Fitness First. So even though we're national, I meet everyone on their first day. 10 to 10:30,
Wow.
And I cover vision, mission, values. Okay, now that's so important to get off on the right foot. What I also talk about there when I go through the values is aim high is one of the ones I kind of focus on. And I say to the team members on those first day, it doesn't matter to me if you're here for a career or not. Okay, not everyone wants a career. You may have just finished university. It's your first job outside university. You're working for us as a member experience manager. Okay. And all I ask you do when you're here, whilst you're here, okay, if you want to be the next actor on the West End, or you want to live abroad, whatever you want to do, just live and breathe these values, okay? Because if you live and breathe these values, you just never know, your priorities might change, and you might want to look at a career with us in the future. But I do say, for those that are here and are interested in the career, okay, superstars stand out, right? And we talk about teams every single week, okay? And it's our job to develop high performers quickly. Okay. Now, we know from managing teams in the past, people sometimes want to run before they can walk, and they expectations are very different to what they would have been 20, 30 years ago. We make that very, very clear from the start. I'll give you a really good example. Hayley, I talk about her a lot, to be fair, so she's probably sick of it now. But if you look at Hayley Richards on LinkedIn, okay, she was our HR director. Hayley started as a receptionist. In fact, she started as a part-time receptionist, okay, and she was a performer on the West End. So she got to a stage in her career where she was like, actually, performing is not for me anymore. She went full-time, then reception manager. She worked in the studio product. She worked a bit in sales. She worked as member services manager, and got her HR qualifications already, and then came into talent and then head HR director. Wow. So her CV is incredible, over 15 years or 16 years. But that was taking someone that had the right attitude, worked really hard. You can't talk high enough about the importance of the basics. Okay. I teach my children, work hard. Okay. Do your best, whatever you can do. Okay. Get on with people, because getting on with people is a really, really good trait to have.
It's a life skill.
Being likable is a life skill. Okay. And then whatever business you're working for at that time, live and breathe the values. If it gets to a stage where you don't fully buy into those anymore, then look for something else, right? Look for something else, because you won't give your best. Okay, so that's what I try and get across to the all new starters, that if you do aim higher and you do care and you do love what you do, okay, you'll get recognized, you'll get noticed quite quickly, and do you know what? You'll progress with this business, into leadership roles, and that's what I try and instill from day one. So the plant's seeded then, and they can choose or not choose to do that, but we'll develop and we'll kind of we'll grab those people and develop them quickly.
So when you look at your next line of leadership, do you see, do you have people who come in with ideas and say, why don't we as an organization do this? So usually I've seen it's, having ownership, like in the minds. When people start taking a lot of ownership, there's a lot of questioning as well.
Yeah.
Because then you're thinking, no, hold on a minute. I don't believe in this.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm going to talk to Mark about this, that I don't think we should be doing this.
Yeah.
How do you handle situations like that?
We welcome that. I mean, if somebody people come with ideas all the time, and they may not even know it sometimes. We can sat in a trade meeting and someone can say something, you're like, actually, let's look at that. That makes sense. And I think you have to be, your brand and your products are always evolving. Okay. But so is everything else. It could be training. It could be the way we do L&D. It could be mentorships, whatever it might be. We'll embrace those ideas. And by the way, I say to the teams on their day one, they've got my email address. So guys, if you've got anything on your mind or anything that comes up during your time with us, drop me a message. I've got no issues doing that at all. Now, we can't go with every single idea, because not every idea is going to work.
At least they should be listened to. I mean,
absolutely.
I think a lot of times people feel, let me at least have an opportunity to table this.
Yeah.
Right. The way you create a right culture where the best idea wins, it doesn't matter who it comes from.
Absolutely.
Is what is going to change the way an organization shapes itself. Because at the end of the day, what's an organization? It's a collection of people, all of us. And it doesn't matter, just because I'm the CEO, COO, or a GM of a company, doesn't mean I'll have the best ideas. You could get the best ideas from somebody who's on the shop floor and say, dude, I think we should do this. And I think if the organization has the capability and a mechanism of recognizing this, it really works. Have you had any experience like this, Mark, where you've got some ideas from people who are like not really senior people in the system, but have come up with an idea which got implemented across the organization?
Probably the best ones or the easiest ones are marketing ones, because So Gymbox had an email which was out of the box. So if you had any ideas, you could email out of the box at any time. And if we went forward with your idea, we'd pay you £250.
Nice.
Okay, so we rewarded that. I can't think specifically about campaigns that people came up with. We did one for April Fools. I think Sarah Clark, who was head of service for us, came up with a name, and we put an implant into the hand for April Fools. We called it Hand Fob, which was a great play on words, which Sarah came up with. So a little one there. We had, there's pretty multiple examples. One that does stick in my mind was we had a receptionist called Zoe. Zoe now lives in Australia. She left the same sort of time I did, and she was receptionist in Ealing, and I always used to open the clubs brand new clubs. I'd be there for the weekend cleaning the club and then open the clubs on the Monday morning with the team on the early shift. And Zoe was a performer, so ballet, dance, everything else. Very, very shy, and I went to the sort of staff area there, and there was some copy written on the wall, on the door, and it was written in a really good tone. I said to Kira, the manager, I said, who wrote that ad? Who wrote that copy? She said, Zoe. I was like, great. So I caught up with Zoe and said, right, the next role that comes available at head office, you're going to take it from a marketing perspective. And Zoe then, a role came available for marketing assistant to work with Rory and Fee, who was with us at the time. And she stepped into a marketing role, all off the back of some copy she'd written to put in the staff room on the door, and worked with us for 5 years in marketing. Wow. It was phenomenal. And Zoe went from this sort of fairly timid receptionist to someone then who competed on events with Muay Thai. She got into boxing and Muay Thai. She then competed in events as well. So that's an example of someone that's, just done something creative in club, or has aimed higher, gone above and beyond. And it gets recognized, and it's really important to recognize those people.
Yeah. So, Mark, one of the challenges I see, in running an organization, I used to struggle with. So, we had 800 employees across the clubs we had, and I would always wonder, what are my people thinking? Am I hearing the best ideas? Are they coming to my table? Am I getting an opportunity to say no to an idea?
Yeah.
Right. Because you get 200 ideas. A couple of them would be like absolutely crazy, and that they could change the face of the organization. And I've seen those in my own life where very simple ideas have changed the way you operate. So how do you put a mechanism in place in an organization like Fitness First or Gymbox or wherever, or whoever is running an organization as a CEO, that you get the best ideas in? Yeah, one is, like you said, out of the box, you create an email ID, reward them and all that. How do you educate people that what's it that they can say, and how do people feel secure in themselves that their idea is not frowned upon, or people don't think, that's a fucking stupid idea?
Yeah.
How do you create that culture?
I think so we do quarterly business reviews, and those quarterly business reviews are all the GMs and then all of the HODs from central team in a room together, represent the last quarter. We'll look ahead at the next quarter.
This is at Fitness First.
This is Fitness First. Yeah, we did it at Gymbox as well, but we do that now. It's in at Fitness First as well, and it gives you a time during the day to have breakout sessions. So we might say, so Brand Onion was a perfect one. The Brand Onion gave every single employee in that room the chance to give their opinion on what our tone of voice should be, what our product value should be. So with the big items, we get people involved from that perspective. I also do 2 strategy days a year. The strategy days will be the leadership team and the ops team from club, who will come together and we'll present, okay, this is my bigger picture, okay? This is the big focuses for the next 12, 18 months. Let's discuss. So they get an input from that perspective as well. The quarterly ones with the GMs we also finish with a social. So we'll finish with some food, some drinks, and that could go on till 10 if you want, that could go on till 2 if you want, right? And that's a time where people share ideas because they feel in a more relaxed environment to share ideas. So I think it can always be better, by the way. It can always be better. And, we may introduce something along the lines of, we had a Gymbox without the box, which was excellent for ideas. But I think we have enough touch time of our team members to hope that we are getting these ideas shared and feedback shared on a regular basis anyway, because there's a lot of senior team touch time.
Mark, I want to take a step back now, get into the fitness business. If I were to look at the gym experience, fundamentally, I feel at the moment where we are across the world is broken. And the reason I say it's broken is because I think as an industry, we're trying to reinvent ourselves. So I was in a webinar yesterday with, a couple of people from the US and different markets in the world. And this was the Beyond Reps, the book we've written, a webinar, that we were discussing how suddenly every single fitness center wants to be a wellness center, but they just don't know what to do. So somebody is saying, how do I say that I'm wellness? I'll put a cold plunge. Somebody says, "Nah, I'll put red light therapy." Somebody says, "I'll put this." But I think we are at that stage where we as an industry are reinventing ourselves. So as an industry, where do you think we are lacking that we're not taken seriously? So I remember I was speaking at the World Health Organization, and what I realized there was nobody takes our industry seriously. Either we are looked at as gym freaks, we don't have enough education for people, our trainers, the qualifications are not up to the mark. um, we come up with the most stupid fads. We push people into taking supplements, so we're all over the place,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And we obviously claim that we are preventive healthcare because we're helping people get better, healthier. So the intent is there, but I think the system is fundamentally broken. And at the moment, you're trying to reinvent yourselves as wellness because that's the industry that's growing. In which direction this is going, I have no idea.
Yeah.
But I know we have to reinvent ourselves. As a business leader in this industry, what do you think we need to do with our product that we are more aligned to what the customer's needs are, especially considering the fact that people have got more aware and educated about wellness?
Yeah. It's a great question, and we could probably speak about this for 3 hours because this is a big subject.
Yeah.
And I feel I'll start with the word noise. There's a lot of noise, right? You think about you're in the industry. I've done 25 years. You've probably done more or similar, right? I look at the industry now and go, there's so much noise from every angle, from your Whoops to your MyZones to your tracking everything, tracking calories, tracking this, tracking that. Okay, and then you come to the product side of things, and you've got your affordable pure gyms, your gym groups, you've got your budget plus with your JDs, you've got your third spaces, which are luxury, not premium, they're luxury. Okay, there's so much out there. I don't know the answer, if I'm being honest, but I know what I'm doing and I know what we're going to be moving forward with. Okay, and you have to take an educated guess on these things of what you want to be as a business. Okay, and then double down on it and do it properly. And that's my message to my team is that whatever we do, we're going to do it fucking well. Okay. So, even things like GLP-1s, I did a podcast recently and I think the guy thought it was crazy. And I said, look, I wouldn't be surprised if GLP-1s are sold in gyms at some stage, right? Okay. So, of course it wouldn't be a pure gym. It'll be something more clinical, okay, where they can have that sort of prescription service. But I wouldn't be surprised if it happens. Now, will that be my gym? Probably not. Maybe. Who knows, right? But I think whatever you do, go in on it and double down on it. And that's what Fitness First are doing. The new sites you'll see now, I still say, and I'll give a percentage on this, and someone's going to watch this podcast and tell me I'm way off, right? But I'd say, let's say 90 to 95% of members still come to your gym for physical and mental well-being. Okay. Now, those goals may have changed over the years. People may train less for vanity now. Okay. Fine. Some people still train for that, for sure. Many might train for that, for sure. But people are definitely training for different reasons. Longevity, general health, well-being. There's a culture shift. There's no doubt there's a culture shift. You're going to go look at the accounts of all the pubs and bars and clubs. Okay. My son's 22. Okay. He goes out and drinks. He drinks probably once a month. I drank Thursday, Friday, Saturday night when he was his age, right? So my money was going into the local nightclub. His money's going into his health and well-being. Yeah. Okay. He's going into his supplementation. He's going into his recovery club. He's going into his strength training club.
Major culture shift.
It's a major culture shift, and you can't. That is happening. We see that happening absolutely. So this is why it's a long conversation. I mean, it's a long conversation.
And I love this. I mean, I this is what I love to discuss about, the future of the industry.
Yeah. So I'm having to, I've got these big ideas, 9 big ideas for 26, 27, 28. Okay. And one of those would be, where are Gen Alpha and Gen Z going? Like, what are they doing now? Okay. You've then got, okay, how do you market to this crowd? Okay. That crowd's not on Facebook, right? That crowd's barely on Instagram. Yeah. Okay. They're in content creation. They're in YouTube. They're in TikTok. They're in Snapchat. Okay. So your marketing completely changes. Your tone of voice changes. How do you create communities in your clubs where they want to be? So this is a big subject. So where we're going on this is premiumization. So our clubs, we're elevating our clubs to be a much more premium experience, and that does include plunge, that does include red light therapy, that does include more creative classes. Okay, it does include reformer, that includes refurb clubs that look, you walk in and go, wow, this is a fitness first, this is different. We've just partnered with Health, so HEALF, Health, as in you've seen the brand Health.
Yeah.
We just partnered with them. We're launching our 360 membership, which means that as a member, you can join on the Health and Health Zone membership, or Health Hero membership, and what you get is your blood tests, you get nutritional consultation, you get access to GPs on demand, you get access to physiotherapists on demand, and you can look at your whole holistic approach to health if you want to. Okay, if you don't want to, that's fine. You can stick to our classic membership, and you can do the classes and do the gym and everything you want to do. So I'd say at the moment, that's 90 to 95% of people are coming in for the physical, mental health. Flip forward 5 years, I don't see this going away. Okay, I think you're going to get 30%, 40% maybe coming in and understanding cold water immersion. They're going to come in more educated. We're about to. When's this launch? In 10 days' time?
Yes.
Okay, we're about to launch something imminently around cold water immersion, because most people come into the club right now and they know they're getting cold water and they get in a sauna, they feel better.
Yeah.
Okay, because it makes you feel better.
Yeah, it does.
But do they actually know the benefits? So we're looking at putting people through programs on this.
Wow.
Okay, so how do you educate someone first and foremost? 25% of our membership base are the gym daunted. The first time ever they've been in a gym. Are they doing it? Probably not. Okay, but they might get more confident, might dip into the plunge, and might get out and go in a sauna and go, oh, I feel great. Walk away with endorphins going and feel great about themselves. But there's also going to be 5% now, 10% now, and 40% in the future who are going to go, well, actually, I really see the benefits of doing this sort of training, and I want it to be guided. So I want an expert to take me through this training. So we're looking at those elements now as well. So when I say going big, this is why I'm saying it's a big move for us to go from fitness first of old to that sort of fitness first, where membership might be in those clubs, 150 to 250 a month. It's a different sort of member we're then aiming at.
And how long do you think will it take to transition to that? Because there's an image that already exists. Do you think it's an uphill task, or is it just product based? So one thing for sure, Fitness First is a very strong brand name. That's a big advantage. That's a tailwind for you. But the headwind is it stands for something already. So how are you going to bridge this gap?
Yeah, I mean, again, a big part of the marketing team is education. Okay, we've got our membership base already that we can re-educate.
Correct.
And it won't be for everyone, and that's absolutely fine, because, as I say, I started as a personal trainer, and many of my clients were personal training because they wanted to live a certain lifestyle, and this training with me supplemented that, right? Because it was like, well, I actually don't want to stop that lifestyle, and I want to have that lifestyle, and I want to go out 3 times a week, but actually I want to look after my body, so I'm going to train. Less people are doing that, so naturally you're moving towards the health, well-being side of things, right? Naturally, in terms of timelines on it, I'm looking at a 5-year sort of plan here of, how you go from 5% to 40%. And that's not because we're directing them there necessarily. That's because of where it's going.
Evolution.
Absolutely. It's where it's going. And I don't see that changing. Now, the good news is, by the way, if, you know what this industry is like, it goes full circle and stuff, right? If in 5-10 years, that's no longer the thing. It's not expensive. It's not expensive to pull out and to relook at what you're doing. What is expensive is your build to start with, right? So I think that's where it's going. It's going to continue to move there. There's more disposable income on gyms because people are not spending it in the pubs and the bars and the restaurants. So people that prioritize their health, they're the people that you're kind of going after.
Another thing that's trending, Mark, is hybrid training. So every other day there's a new format of games coming out. So High Rocks, Trika,
Athletics, Matrix.
Yeah, Athletics, then Deadly Dozen. I know there are multiple things. Is Fitness First going to be riding this wave as well? Because that demands a lot of change in the infrastructure.
Yeah, I mean, look, we already partner with High Rocks, and there are volume-wise our most popular class.
Yeah.
Okay, so again, that is functional training, right? So
Correct.
the good news is on this is, yes, you might have a High Rocks affiliation and a partnership there, but actually it's still functional training. That hasn't changed.
Yeah.
So, if that, trend was to kind of peter out as such, something else comes along, well, it's still functional training area.
Correct.
So I still think that will grow, and I think there's more of them now there to kind of to work with. So yeah, I don't think that will stop anytime soon.
And does every single fitness first have the capability of running a high rocks class, or is it you're getting there? What's the
80%, probably 80% have the ability. The bigger clubs, ones with the turf tracks, and yes, about 80% of them can run those sorts of classes.
And do you see a good uptake of these?
They're all full.
Like you said,
they're all full. Yeah, I mean, it's such a, again, High Rocks is the draw as well. Of course, people are training for that, but for us, it's functional training, and functional training and strength training is big, right? So we're putting in, lifting clubs. We're refurbing studios to cater for actual lifting clubs now, because strength is 60% of your footprint is strength, right? So it's
mad how fast this changes. I remember like just about I think 5 or 7 years back, you would walk into a gym and you would have 40 treadmills and crazy. And now I was speaking to one of my friends who works with Pure Gym, and he said, when we're now going through refurbs, we've cut down our cardio by like 40%.
Yeah.
It's just mad. It's just mad because the demand for strength has gone up so high that, you need more space for strength. And it's like you said, comes back in a full circle. I mean, I still think strength training is the best kind of training. The only reason people should be walking or running on a treadmill is if they don't have access to running tracks, or to go outside, or the weather is not up to the mark. Other than that, I honestly feel treadmills are a fucking waste of money for a gym. Honest to God, they're so expensive. And for what they are, I mean, the problem they're solving is for you to run, you can run free of cost outside. So I just don't understand why would you spend. I mean, I've never been able to get my head around this. Why would you spend 10 grand on a treadmill and people say, oh, it's got a 32-inch screen there. People can watch fucking television at home. I mean, it's just, it just baffles me that we spend so much money on cardio, or we used to, I think.
Yeah, it's being used less and less now. So screens, for example, they're being used less and less. I remember when Woodways came out, I remember Richard saying to David, who was obviously product director and co-founder, fucking hell, why are you spending that much money on a piece of kit that doesn't have a screen? Like, what are we doing, And they was like, trust me, this is the future. And this was many, many years ago. I suppose where cardio does come into its own, and you're right, our footprint on cardio is way smaller now for sure. Would be, depending on what country you're in as well, because in England it's dark quite a lot. Okay, so, and is it safe running on the streets and everything else that goes with it? So I think if you go to a gym, I think for the gym daunted, okay, the cardio area is a safe space. Okay, so when you first join the gym, we put everyone through, or try to put everyone through, a bioage assessment. Okay, that bioage assessment will tell you your metabolic score, your cardio, your flexibility, and your strength score, and overall a bioage. Okay, so we get minimum 30% through that. Sometimes getting 50+% through that of new onboarded joiners going through this process. At the end of that, it then will give you a program based upon your specific goals and your level of ability. Okay, so if you are a beginner.
And how's this done? What's the process? So if I walk into the gym, how do you do this?
So it's using the eGym equipment.
Okay.
So you got the eGym hub.
Yeah.
We get all your stats, and we do all the testing with you for a half an hour process. We put it onto the screen, and then you've got your own account, and it will give you a program off the back of it.
Nice.
Okay. So our target's to get between 30 and 50% of people through these programs. For your gym daunted, it's really, really important. So getting them into the club during that first week, during that first few months. And I think that's where cardio comes into this, because that will form part of their program based upon their base level of fitness. But you are right. I mean, very rarely do you see somebody running on a treadmill now for, 60 minutes or whatever it might be. It's used maybe for a warm up, maybe for a cool down. I remember back in the day, LA Fitness, we're talking 2002 here, 2003, the treadmills were all limited to 20 minutes, and we'd have queuing barriers for the treadmill, so you might have to wait 15 minutes before you could get onto a treadmill.
I remember.
Unbelievable, really. Looking back, that's an evolution, though, right? How fitness has evolved over time. We say quite a lot, the industry stands still. But actually, when you look back 20 years, we've evolved quite a lot. When you actually start looking at all the wearable tech and everything else goes with it. So, as I say, a lot of noise for the consumer. So we try and keep it as simple as possible.
So, Mark, say if I were to give you, I mean, and this is a very good point to get this question in. If I were to give you £1 million today to start a gym business, what would your business look like?
Yeah, I mean, it would probably look a hybrid of a gym box and a premium fitness first. So what I mean by that is I'd want the personality and charisma of the old gym box, not the new gym box. It's very different now, right?
Yeah.
So I'd want that because I think that really drives something.
It had a
sticky.
personality.
Absolutely. It drives something sticky for sure. But I do think I would evolve the product beyond creative classes and big strength areas. I think the industry is moving on from that. And I think I'd go definitely along the lines of now this kind of 360 membership we're offering, the right partnerships, and then the product being very much along the lines of, co-working, so social areas. We're putting those in the future. That's the plan. Going big on strength, going big on recovery, and doing it properly. So it'd probably be a hybrid of the two, but with personality and edge to it as well.
Yeah, I think the personality aspect of a gym brand is extremely important, because this is one of the businesses where your customer walks in almost every day of the year. Like your most regular members must be doing 200 days and 250 days in a year. So that's their second home in a way, because they're spending an hour. There's no other business where you can think that somebody would come in every day and spend an hour with you. So if you don't have a personality, they're not going to stick around with you. And the personality has to reflect on with the staff, because it's not only the infrastructure, because it's the people you interact with, which means that you need to train your people really well.
Absolutely.
And we all also have an industry where there's a churn in trainers. So because you've got trainers, I don't know how Fitness First works. Do you employ trainers? Are they self-employed?
We mix.
Yeah. So now how do you cater to self-employed trainers talking the same language? Like typically, I still remember this. I went to one of the clubs in London. I don't remember which brand, but it was a really nice club, and we walked in. There was a gym box, I think, and then they said that these are all self-employed. And I had come from India, and I'd never heard of self-employed, because in India you hire people, in Dubai you hire people, they're your employees. So if they're self-employed and they're on the floor, you can keep saying them they're self-employed, but for me as a member who walks in, they are you. So how do you manage it, especially with self-employed, because they're like, dude, I don't want to go through this training, you're not paying me for it, so my hours are, I want to fucking bill.
But PT is a really interesting one, and I had the pleasure of working with the guys at Until for several months, and their model is completely different. And the Untils of the world are a real threat to brands like Third Space and Ultimate Performance, because UP and Third Space employ their staff. Okay. Now, I want to quote numbers, but I know at UP more recently, a friend of mine was training with a trainer at UP. He was paying about $3,000 a month for the training. He's in incredible shape, done a great job of getting him in shape. Of his £150 an hour, I think the trainer was getting £25 to £35 of that £150. So you've got to look at yourself as a trainer from that perspective and go, right, I'm employed, great, but I'm getting £25, £35, whatever it might be.
The word you're looking for is fuck all.
Yeah, exactly. The business is profiteering off this. And yes, they have, good training, development, and how they do the systems. And this is not a knock on their model, by the way. I'm just saying this is the risk to the model. Yeah. Having worked with someone like Until now, where I go, well, actually, most of Until's trainers are coming from your UPs and your Third Spaces, okay? Because they're employed models. They're not taking as many from your Fitness First and your gym boxes, because they're the self-employed model.
Correct.
And the self-employed model, you might pay, depending on the location, between £600 a month and £1,600 a month on rent, okay? If you go to Until and you've got 20 sessions a week and paying £35 per session to Until, you'll get access to a premium facility. You've got reception teams there. Everything's taken care of for you. You know that in the gym space there's a maximum of, say, between 12 and 18 trainers at any one time, because there's enough equipment just to cater for that. So you get a great experience from a consumer perspective. It's premium, but you do pay more than you pay at Fitness First, and you pay more than you pay at Gymbox, because you're paying by hour.
Correct.
Okay. Now, Good thing is you're not paying when you're on holiday because you're only paying by the hour.
Yeah.
But the reality is doing 20 sessions a week, you pay more. So that's where I think there's a challenge here. When it comes to self-employed PTs in Fitness First, though, I'm actually just onboarding. We've done a reshuffle internally. Tim, who's been with business for 26 years, who's phenomenal, is taking product. He does PT and product at the moment. I'm bringing somebody in from a brand I know very well to run our PT. And that all forms part of your induction, your onboarding, your brand, your vision, your mission, your values. You get people buying into that. Okay, it's really important that PTs don't feel that they're not part of something, part of a community, and that's not easy to do. So
yeah, it's very difficult to do that. You're right. And I mean, in fact, I was with Vish last, a couple of weeks back, and I said, he's just turned the model on its head, because suddenly somebody's talking about let the trainer make the lion's share of, of the money that we're getting, and we become the infrastructure partners who just give them the right kind of environment.
Yeah.
And it's kind of a sharing the cost burden with so many things around. So I love that model. And I think I was telling Vish that this was hiding in plain sight. It's just, knew this, somebody had to do this.
Yeah.
Because you can see it, like you said, $3,000 for personal training a month. And it's usually the trainers who are doing everything.
Yeah.
But they get fuck all out of it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So yes, there is a brand or whatever, but at the end of the day, it has to be a system where the free, especially when it comes to like freelancers, people who are really great trainers, they want to do this. And you're right. So yeah, probably competition is until it's going to get people from brands like Third Space and a UP, and not so much from where people are already self-employed.
It doesn't seem so, because
I agree with you.
I've been there and I've seen it already, which is interesting. But you think about,
I never thought of it like this though.
Yeah, and you think about brands like with employed models. Let's say the trainer's getting £35 per session, and the business is charging £150. When they go to a brand like Until, they're paying £35 in credits for that hour. But also, they don't need to charge the consumer 150. They could charge them 100.
Yeah.
And they're still making £65. They're making £30 more per hour than they're making before. So that's why I think there's
and on their own terms also.
Absolutely on their own terms, in their own space, their own times. And that's where I think it's disruptive. And also they provide co-working spaces.
Yeah.
So I worry less about it, because I know for me that we offer great facilities. We're spending a lot of money refurbing our facilities. We're going all in on these sort of 9 big ideas. Our teams are seeing it happen. PTs are seeing investment in the business. So I worry less, because they're earning good money, because they're taking all of the income themselves. And when you offset the rent, actually they're making very good money still. So that's why I think the self-employed model is good. We also offer a hybrid model. So think about your self-employed model with me be pulling across a PT from Gymbox or a Nuffield Health or a Virgin Active. You bring your membership base across to us. We'll incentivize you to do that. And here's the rental model with us. Great. That's where you'll take most of the self-employed PTs. With the employed PTs, what we do is we do a 10-hour, we call it a hybrid. So they do 10 hours working for us. And this is where we can train, develop them. They can teach classes. They can do able sessions for us, which is the e-gym system, because they get to meet members. Okay. But they might be off a course. Okay. They might have done a course. They might be really into fitness. We've got a guy started yesterday. He's worked as a banker. He's now moved to a Hammersmith club. He's newly to the business, and he said, I've always had an interest in fitness. I look after myself. It looks like a great industry to be in. I'm at an age now where I'm going, there's more to life than banking probably. Yeah. And he's moving across. Well, that's perfect for him, because he can do 10 hours a week. He can learn the industry. He gets 9 months to build himself up to become a fully fledged PT. Yeah. And 9 months is a great, yes. You'll build a client base in 9 months. And then he goes from a hybrid into a self-employed PT, and we bring someone else into a hybrid role. That's the model we've got. So, which I really like. At Gymbox, we only had the self-employed model, but I like the hybrid, because it means you're bringing new people in. And they have to be the right people still. It can't just be anybody off a course. They have to have the right, personality and attributes and desire to go and be a full-time self-employed PT.
The mindset is going to be the key in that. If you don't have the right mindset and you're not prepared to do this, you shouldn't be getting into it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Last question for you, Mark. Where do you see Fitness First go in the next 5 years? Will we see a completely new brand, completely new avatar of the brand? or are you going to, are you going to make it like a hybrid where, okay, the old fitness first stays what it stood for, or is it going to be completely new over the next 5 years? I know it's going to be slow change, but over the next 5 years, how do you see the brand evolving?
Yeah, I think that already, if you come to meet me in London Bridge in the Cottons Club, I don't know if you've seen that club yet or not, at all. Okay, so if you go to that London Bridge Cottons Club, we're bringing people in that are walking around going, wow, like this is not what I expected. Okay, so we have a job to do of changing perception. Now, as I said earlier, we have a fantastic community, and I think Fitness First probably, rightly or wrongly, has had a hard time across the last 10 years on perception. Okay, but I can tell you, having been under the hood for the last 9 months, it has an unbelievably strong community. What I'm trying to do is change the perception maybe of the 10, 20%. Okay, now those 20%, they come into the club, they walk around and go, this is incredible. We love the direction going in. And that's where we need to be across the next 5 years. In fact, we'll do it sooner than that. We're talking probably the next 2 to 3 years. Every single club you're going to, you'll go in and have a new DNA for a Fitness First compared to what the perception was 2, 3, 4, 5 years ago. So that will be certainly the plan across the next 5 years.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Mark. Really appreciate it.
No problems. Good to see you.
Same here.